All right, let's talk about data. You hear that word constantly, right? And for good reason. It's everywhere. Think about it. From the stats you pore over when you're picking a college, to the way your bank keeps tabs on every single transaction, data's kind of the invisible force shaping our world. So we're going to dive in and figure out how we turn these just simple numbers into some really powerful knowledge.
And this quote right here, this is going to be our roadmap for this whole explainer. I want you to picture it like a giant pyramid. Down at the very bottom, you've got all this raw, messy data. And way, way up at the peak, that's wisdom. Our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to figure out how to climb that thing one step at a time. So, that really is the big question, isn't it? What's the real difference? How do we get from a pile of numbers to something that's actually, insightful? That's exactly what we're going to unpack. We're going to look at the tools and the steps that make that incredible transformation possible.
Okay, let's get the official definition out of the way first. At its core, data is really just a bunch of characters, numbers, symbols, a collection of raw facts. Imagine a huge, long list of numbers. Before you do anything with it, it's not really useful. It's just stuff.
And this is a super important point. By itself, raw data is, it's kind of useless. Let's say a college gives you a list of 2,000 student placements from the last 3 years. Just imagine that spreadsheet. On its own, it's just a wall of text. It's noise. It doesn't tell you a single thing until you start to process it, to organize it, and really look for those hidden patterns. So, how do we even begin to make sense of all that stuff? Well, before you can process anything, you've got to know what you're working with, right? And the very first step is realizing that data basically has two faces. It comes in two main flavors: the super organized kind and, the really messy kind.
Yeah, so on one hand, you've got your structured data. This is the neat freak of the data world. Everything fits perfectly into nice, clean rows and columns, just like a spreadsheet. But on the other hand, you've got unstructured data. And that is, pretty much everything else. It's the wild, unpredictable stuff that has no set format at all.
Here's a perfect example of what I mean by structured data: a simple kitchen inventory. See how everything has its place? A model number, a product name, a price. It's all perfectly organized. With a table like this, you could figure out the total value of your inventory in 2 seconds. Super easy.
But here's the crazy thing. Most of the data out there in the real world looks a lot more like this. We're talking about web pages, emails, your social media comments, audio clips, video files. It's all unstructured. And because there's no fixed format, trying to get a computer to analyze it automatically, that's a whole different ballgame.
Okay, so now we know our data can be either neat and tidy or a complete mess. So what's next? How do we actually turn it into something useful? Let's take a look at the process. I want you to think of it like a data factory. We're going to take in the raw materials and see how they get turned into valuable information.
And you know what? It really boils down to 3 simple stages. First, you've got the input. That's just gathering up all the raw data. Then comes the processing step. This is where the magic happens, where you clean it up, sort it, and analyze it. And finally, you get the output, the good stuff, like a nice clean report, a chart, or just a straightforward answer.
And this whole cycle, it happens all around us in things we do every single day, probably without even thinking about it. You go to an ATM, right? Your card and your PIN, that's the input. The machine does the processing by checking your account balance. And the output, you get your cash and a receipt. It's that same simple but really powerful cycle at work everywhere.
All right, let's zoom in on that processing stage. What is actually going on in there? Well, it's all about using a specific set of tools. Think of it like a statistician's toolkit. And we're going to start with the first set of tools in our kit, the ones that help us find the center of the story the data is telling. Now, the fancy term for these is measures of central tendency, but honestly, let's just call them the big 3: the mean, the median, and the mode. Each one of these gives us a slightly different angle on what's typical or average in a pile of numbers. First up is the mean. This is what pretty much everyone thinks of when they say average. It's super simple. You just add up all the values and then divide by how many values there are. So for this group of students and their heights, you add them all up, divide by 9, and you get a mean height of about 101.33 centimeters. Easy enough, right? But there's a catch. What happens if one of those students is like a 7-foot-tall professional basketball player? That one single extreme number, what we call an outlier, is going to yank that average way up. Suddenly, the mean doesn't really represent the group very well at all, does it?
It's really sensitive to those crazy high or low numbers.
And this is where our next tool, the median, comes in to save the day. Here's how it works. You just line up all your numbers from smallest to largest, and the median is the one that's sitting right in the middle. That giant basketball player, they can be at the end of the line, but they won't change that middle value one bit. So the median often gives you a much better picture of the actual center when you have outliers.
And last of the big three is the mode. This one might be the easiest of all. It's just the number that shows up the most often. In our list of student heights, 110 centimeters pops up 3 times, which is more than any other number. So 110 is our mode. It's not about the average, it's about what's most popular or most frequent. So you can see how this would be super useful for something like finding the most popular answer on a survey.
Okay, so finding the center of our data is a huge step, but it's really only half the story. Think about it. We also need to know how spread out everything is. Are all the numbers bunched up real tight around the average, or are they just all over the place?
And to figure that out, we're going to pull 2 more tools out of our toolkit, the range and the standard deviation. These guys are all about measuring the spread, or the variability, in our data.
The range is about as straightforward as it gets. You literally just find the highest number and subtract the lowest number. Boom, that's your range. For our student heights, the tallest is 115 and the shortest is 85, so the range is 30 centimeters. It's a really quick snapshot, but remember, it only cares about the 2 extremes. It doesn't tell you anything about what's happening in the middle.
Now, standard deviation. This one's a little more advanced, but the idea is super powerful. In a nutshell, it tells you how spread out your numbers are from the average or the mean. If you have a small standard deviation, it means all your data points are huddled together really closely. But if you have a large standard deviation, it means your data is scattered all over the map.
Okay, we've talked about structured versus unstructured data, we've seen the data factory in action, and we've opened up our toolkit, so what? Why does any of this actually matter? Why is it so important to climb that pyramid from just raw data up to real knowledge?
Just think about the journey we've been on. We started with what was basically just a jumble of raw facts, just noise. Then we saw how to give it some structure, how to run it through that input, process, output cycle. And then we used some simple but really powerful tools, mean, median, standard deviation, to pull out actual insights. We've literally watched data become information.
And really, that's the whole point. You are absolutely surrounded by data every single day. It's in your fitness tracker, in your online shopping history, in the reports you see at work. And every single one of those data sets has a story just waiting to be told. So the real question is, now that you know a little bit about the tools, what stories are you going to find?